Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to go through some players that I would like for the Las Vegas Raiders to target in NFL free agency after the first week is in the books. Now, I know last week they started off Monday and Tuesday, went out, made a few key moves, though since the Eric Stokes signing, the Raheem Mostert signing, it has been a little bit quiet. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap of where the Raiders are sitting right now for free agency. Whether you're looking at Overthecap, whether you're looking at Spotrac, we do have the 7th most money. The one number that I want people to look at, though, is that $44.2 million in dead money. I do think that one of the reasons why the Raiders are being a little bit more conservative is because, yes, they're trying to compete this year, but they're also trying to set themselves up for 2, maybe 3 years down the line. And when you got this much money at dead money, that's because of all the bad signings, the bad trades, the bad, honestly, drafts that this organization has had leading up to this point. So don't blame Pete Carroll and John Spytek for just trying to clean up everybody else's mess. If the Raiders do go out and they sign a player, you already know, we're going to be dropping a video here. I was really hoping that the Raiders would sign a player over the weekend, quite frankly. That did not happen. Maybe they're waiting for today. Maybe they're waiting to go out and extend Geno Smith. When that happens, I promise you, we might even, not even mind you, when the Raiders extend Geno Smith, if it's definitely during work hours, I'm going to be going live here on today's show. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to go through all the depth charts here, and I'm going to go and tell you which players I want the Raiders to target in free agency, or if I want the Raiders to target anybody from that position in general. We're going to start first at the quarterback spot. You went out, you traded for Geno Smith. Quite frankly, I don't really think that the Raiders need to go out and sign anybody else in free agency. I would personally go out and add a quarterback on day 3, though Geno was seen with Shedeur Sanders over the weekend. If you didn't see that, you got to give me a follow on IG and on Twitter at Mitchell Renz 365. Let's go to the running back room. This is a weak running back room. And with that being said, I do not want the silver and black to add any more running backs. You went out and you assigned Raheem Mostert to a 1-year, $2.1 million deal. I don't really have a lot of confidence in any of the other running backs that you see. I want Sincere McCormick to be good. I sincerely do. He's just got to be healthy. If it was up to me, you got to go out and draft a running back. Hell, maybe 2 because of how deep this class is. Let's now go to wide receiver. And this is where I am going to actually give you all some names of some players that I want the Raiders to target. You got Jacoby Myers, who's the wide receiver 1. You got Trey Tucker, who's the 2. And I think at this point in free agency, you're not really going to find a receiver that's going to give you higher value than Jacoby. So maybe you want to go out and add a veteran. I still think that this is a team that should draft a wide receiver on top of that. So the receivers that I want the nation to at least keep an eye on. The first name is going to be Keenan Allen. Not saying that he's the best one out there, but due to his relationship with Raiders wide receiver coach Chris Beatty, he was a Raiders fan growing up and has followed Beatty the past 2 teams that he's been on, from the Chargers to the Bears. Tyler Lockett is probably the other top name that the Raiders are going to consider. His relationship with Geno Smith and his ability to still be able to catch the deep ball cannot be unseen. It cannot be unnoticed. Another wide receiver that's got some connections to the Raiders is Brandon Cooks, who, when you see a lot of these names, I think that they're going to try to add a vet to pair with Geno and then try to draft a receiver maybe in round 3. Maybe they try to do it on round 1 with T. McMillan, right? But Brandon Cooks, he at least won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. Let's go Stefon Diggs. He's been working out a ton with Geno. I know there's some issues going on right now with Stefon Diggs, but here's the thing. This Raiders team, they've been so careful. If they go out and sign Diggs despite the allegations going on, you got to sit there as a Raider fan and say, you know what? I bet you they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, so we got to feel okay about it. Let's go to another name here. It's going to be Robert Woods, and this is one that I was talking about over the weekend. Think about how many moves the Raiders have made this offseason where it was like, where's the connection? And we've seen already this team talk about the importance of recruiting. It was one of the reasons why they brought in so many college coaches. Robert Woods did not have any overlap with Pete Carroll at all at USC. However, I do wonder if Pete Carroll recruited Robert Woods to USC because the timeline is right there. So I do think overall, and the other cherry on top is Greg Olsen has worked with Matthew Stafford. The Raiders obviously talked to Stafford. And if you're looking for a veteran receiver that can just be sure-handed for cheap, Robert Woods is going to be a name to throw out there. Well, somebody that I would like the Raiders to target is Elijah Moore, still a young receiver, only 4 years in the league. He's played with the Jets, and he's played with the Browns. Anybody writing off Elijah Moore after those 2 teams, man? Come on, dude. I do think that this could be a younger receiver, and here's the other thing that I mentioned. Pete Carroll, he scouted DK Metcalf. when Elijah Moore was on that team. You're telling me he didn't watch some Elijah Moore tape? I think you're kidding yourself. The final name, and this is not somebody that I really want the Raiders to go out and get, but it's just going to be a name that I'll throw out there. He's a speedy receiver, and if you're looking to add extra competition, which was what Pete Carroll says all the time, you could maybe add a D. Eskridge to compete with Trey Tucker and see who comes out on top. He was a second-round pick back in 2021, and obviously Pete Carroll liked him then. Let's see if Pete Carroll likes him now. This is going to be the pinned comment, though, on today's show. Who is one free agent that you want the Raiders to sign this week? I know that we heard all the reports that this team was going to be aggressive. Hell, I talked about how aggressive they were going to be. I don't know if we're still waiting for them to be aggressive, but I am still waiting for at least one good signing this week. Let me know down below who you want that to be. I want the Raiders to go out and add a wide receiver so we can feel a little bit better about that room. It doesn't make a lot of sense to trade for a quarterback when you have the wide receiver room that we have. I'm patient. I know that's going to be a lot better than what we see right now. Let's go to the tight end room. And the tight end room, you got Brock Bowers, you got Michael Mayer, Justin Shorter as well. This is going to be a room where I don't really need to add a tight end, so I'm going to only talk about one, and that is Mo Alley Cox. Some of y'all are like, Mitch, I think you just want Cox in Las Vegas. You know what? Maybe you're not wrong in that. But what I am concerned about is all the rumors that we've been hearing around Michael Mayer, the situation that happened with Mayer. We do need a third tight end, and the fact that Harrison Bryant ended up going to the Philadelphia Eagles, I want a tight end that can block and can be a red zone option. That's what Mo Alley Cox is to me. Let's go to the Raiders' offensive line now. And you could sit here and you could look at different groupings here and there. And I think what I'm going to say, it might surprise some people, but I actually don't want the Raiders to add anybody else on the offensive line in free agency. I liked Mekhi Becton. I wanted them to go out and potentially add him because I said maybe you could kick Dylan Parham. But I talked to some people over the weekend. This is a organization that is a lot more confident in this offensive line than I really thought to be possible. However, with that being said, this is still a team to me that if I had to upgrade at a certain position, I am going to try to upgrade at that right tackle spot. I know they like DJ Glaze, but if you have the opportunity to get Armin Membu at number 6 overall, I'm not kidding you. The more and more I watch him, the more and more I'm like, if I was the Raiders, and I'm not afraid to say it, that's the pick that I would go with there at number 6. We got some more positions coming up here in just a moment. We're going to look at the defensive side of the football because, hey, the defense is where this team is really needs some help, especially in free agency. Before I get into that, though, shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. I'm telling y'all right now, my favorite time of the year, not counting Raiders football, my favorite time of the year for Prize Picks, March flippin' Madness. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS. It's easy. It's exciting. Daily fantasy sports. We're also going to be doing a lot of crazy stuff on the Raiders board. But if you're like Mitch, I'm a Raiders fan. Give me some season-long outlooks for the Raiders. What do you got? Right now, the only thing that is up on Prize Picks is Geno Smith and Brock Bowers. You can go more or less on Geno Smith passing yards, passing touchdowns. You can also go more or less on Brock Bowers receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Now, again, this is not a lineup that you can do because you're not allowed to pick a same player twice. You're also got to switch up the teams a little bit. My favorite, though, the Geno Smith passing yards and the Brock Bowers receiving touchdowns. I am going more, and I almost think that they're just giving you free money. Well, actually, they kind of are giving you free money because if you download the app today, you use code CLNS, you're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run yo game. All right, let's go now to the defensive side of the football. Let's look at our defensive ends, our edges overall. To me, what I'm really trying to do is replace K'Lavon Chaisson. I love the Max Crosby extension. I love the fact that we're able to bring back Malcolm Koonce at the price tag. Tyree Wilson needs to take a step forward. I was actually talking to somebody around David Agoa that said, David Agoa is not a player to sleep on. He is an athletic freak, and he's starting to put it together a little bit. But to me, I do want to find another player that can replace K'Lavon. And, Charles Snowden, He did some good stuff last season. He also did a lot of, knuckleheaded stuff. Azeez Ojulari is going to continuously be a player that I monitor. He was a second-round pick at a career year as a rookie with Patrick Graham. You could add somebody like that. If you also want to add a long, lanky dude, Lorenzo Carter, he also has some Patrick Graham ties. Didn't have a very good season last year. He was with the Atlanta Falcons and has kind of, struggled over the past year or two. But go watch the tape with Lorenzo Carter. And if that build, the athletic lankiness that you saw on K'Lavon Chaisson, I think you bring in Carter. And again, if the Raiders can do it with K'Lavon, I'm not saying Carter's going to be a player that gets you 5 sacks, but maybe can get you 3 or 4. Another name I'm going to throw out there is Emmanuel Ogbah. And Ogbah was somebody that had some really good years and, I think wanted too much money, which made some people fall off him a little bit. But Ogbah's got connections to Christian Wilkins. He's got connections to Rob Leonard. He's got connections to Patrick Graham, to Adam Butler. Heck, I know John Jenkins isn't on this team anymore, but Ogbah does have a lot of those ties, and he's a little bit bigger of an edge. But if you wanted somebody, again, that could be experienced, it's got a lot of coaching connections, as long as it's not breaking the bank, he's getting up there in age, Emmanuel Ogbah has to be somebody that we consider. Let's go to the defensive tackle room. This is a little bit of a weak room, I'm not going to lie to y'all. It does concern me a little bit, but the point where I am right now with defensive tackles is I'm going to just try to bring in somebody that makes everybody else around them better. I love that we have Christian Wilkins. I love that we have Adam Butler. And I know that this man right here is 38 years old, but until Calais Campbell falls off, and like when I say falls off, the way that y'all should look at Calais Campbell is the same way you look at somebody like Bobby Wagner. I get it. He's 34 years old. Wagner. Campbell's 38 years old. But if there's been a position, especially on defense, that's been able to show teams that they can still play at a high level into their mid to late 30s, it's the DT spot. But then also, Campbell's just such a big dude. It makes everybody else around him better. This, to me, would be a John Jenkins type of replacement, which, speaking of which, I'm either going to go out and get Calais Campbell or I'm going to go out and get John Jenkins. I want a veteran, a leader on that line. And I will say John Ulalu is a sleeper here for the Raiders just because he's somebody that's going to get better and better, and the coaching staff, I do likes them a lot. At this point, though, I'm looking for a veteran that I can bring in on a one-year deal, give him some incentives, and I need somebody that just makes everybody else around them better. And both of those players, with all of their coaching staff, player connections, I think makes a lot of sense for the silver and black. Let's go to the linebacker room now, and this is a very weak unit overall. You got Elandon Roberts, who I do think is low-key going to be a lot better than what people give him credit for. Outside of that, though, lots and lots of unknowns where there's some good athletes like an Amari Gaynor. You got an unknown in Tommy Eichenberg. Amari Burney, also a good athlete. But the problem with somebody like Burney is really just an athlete. I would like to see the Raiders potentially add another linebacker. Maybe you want to go out and add somebody like E.J. Speed, right? Like, you need to have a linebacker that can cover. Elandon Roberts, I think y'all are going to love him. Dude is an absolute thumper. He's going to light some people up. He is Mr. Hitstick. But we do need somebody that can cover a little bit. Now, E.J. Speed coming off a solid year, 142 tackles. Kaiser White, this was a linebacker that I talked about a bunch a few years ago because I liked his versatility. I also liked his ability to cover. They named him a team captain in 1 year. Isaiah Simmons is a project player. But we've also seen the Raiders kind of go out and get a Jeremy Chinn. And I think Jeremy Chinn and Elandon Roberts going to help kind of make up for that loss of Robert Spillane. You want to find a player that can kind of be maybe what a Divine Diablo can be, just an absolute freak of nature as an athlete. I just don't think Isaiah Simmons has ever been used correctly. And if I was Simmons, I would love the opportunity to go play with this regime. Jerome Baker, another linebacker that struggled last season, but Baker also has got a lot of ties to a lot of those Miami guys. Got a lot of ties to Rob Leonard, to Patrick Graham, and that type of staff. Also, anytime I see Ohio State next to a player, it does. I know the Raiders are looking at Ohio State Buckeye players very, very closely, and it kind of reminds me, I had a conversation many years ago, many years ago, and it was actually somebody that was involved with the New England Patriots, and it was around the Patriots were looking at a lot of players from Greg Schiano and Rutgers because they thought they were pros. This is a team right now that's looking for pros, and Ohio State is a realm or is a organization, especially with Chip Kelly now, that this team's looking at. The last name here at linebacker, I'm going to throw out one. It's Chad Surratt. And I liked Surratt when he was first coming out of North Carolina, and he has not had a lot of playing time. But last season, he had to step up. He had to step up for the New York Jets, and he really answered the bell. When you look at his PFF grades, solid linebacker, has done a lot of good. I don't know how he's going to look in a full-time role, but I am a believer in this defensive staff, and when I see a player that's doing well, and honestly doing really well in a limited fashion, I will bet on that player to put on this regime because I think we have a damn good defensive staff. So what do you think the Raiders' biggest need is right now in free agency on the defensive side of the football? Because believe me, I've seen it, I've heard it, I know that people are concerned about this defense right now, but at the exact same time, still plenty of time to be able to figure it out. But let me know down below what you think the biggest need is on defense. For me personally, I think our biggest need is finding a free safety, which we'll talk about some free safeties here in just a moment. Before I do, though, let's look at this cornerback room. And I'll be real, I actually don't even think that we really have a nickel back. Because I'll tell you this, I don't want to really put Jacorian in at nickel, considering the fact that he's an outside corner and he had a good year in his second year. But here's the problem. I don't trust Jack Jones in the nickel. And if the Raiders are going to play man, you can't trust Jack. If the Raiders are going to play zone, that's fine. Eric Stokes, they signed him to a 1-year, 4-year. There's a lot of talented young men. Eric Stokes, DeCamerion Richardson, Jacorian Bennett, Jack Jones. I don't care how you shake it. Those are a lot of talented young players. What I want, though, is somebody that I can rely on a little bit more. Maybe that's Asante Samuel Jr. He's played on the inside. He's played on the outside. I'll be real, though. I actually think he's more of an outside corner, and I know that he's small, but, like, the Raiders fans that fell in love with Amik Robertson because he's that dog, and he didn't care that he was the smallest guy on the field. That's Asante Samuel Jr., and I know for a fact that also the Raiders like kids that come from, families with football. If you don't know, his dad's Asante Samuel. Rasul Douglas, outside corner. This one pains me a little bit because if I would have been the decision makers from the Raiders when we first brought him in, he would still be on this team. But he was a Pro Bowler even though the year they cut him. Kendall Fuller, another player who's coming off a little bit of a down year. He could look to be a veteran. When you have the amount of young players that the Raiders do on defense, and I still think that they're going to look at a cornerback in the draft, I want to at least have one reliable veteran that when those young guys have questions, and there's going to be a lot of questions, they need to be able to look to somebody and say, hey, what should I do? Because right now, they're going to probably look to somebody like Jack Jones, and I don't really want that to happen. So I'm looking at a Kendall Fuller. I'm looking at a Stephon Gilmore, somebody that has been able to win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And another player, like I mentioned with the Calais Campbell, right? Like I mentioned with a Bobby Wagner. I get it that he's not the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year that he once was. He is still playing, though, at a high level. And if Stephon Gilmore was on this roster right now, he would be the cornerback one. He would be. He would be the best corner we have. And when you have that type of player with all these other young, developing raw players, I like that type of mentality. One other dude that was really solid with Pete Carroll, and then since he's left Pete, has kind of spiraled, and I think Shaquille Griffin is a good player. And if I was Shaquille Griffin, I would want to go back to playing with Pete Carroll because since he's left Pete, it has not been all roses. That's a fact. Ahkello Witherspoon has been a player that's been on the Raiders' radar really for like the past few off seasons. He's been a name that's been thrown out a few times to me. Ahkello Witherspoon, though, because he's long, he's lanky, he's got some of that athletic ability, also has spent a lot of time in the NFC West. So Carroll and this DB regime that we have has been paying a close attention to a lot of those players. I look at a lot of the vets, and if it was me, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to either sign a veteran at corner or I'm looking at Asante Samuel Jr. That's really where I'm at right now. But you still need to add a corner in the draft. Let's now go to safety because I said it before. You need a free safety. Isaiah Palomalu's not good enough to be a free safety right now in the NFL. He is a great third safety, though, and I don't want that statement that I just made to get it twisted because what Patrick Graham likes to run is 3 safety sets. So you got a Jeremy Chinn who's going to be up near the box. You got Isaiah Palomalu that can be super versatile, but you need a true center fielder. You need somebody that you can rely upon to where if you're going to play near the box, that you have that somebody that's back there in center field and you know they're going to be able to catch a fly ball. Justin Simmons is 32 years old, and I know that he's not same Justin Simmons that a lot of y'all remember from the Denver Broncos, but you add Justin Simmons to that free safety room. I know that y'all love Trevon Merrick. I love Trevon Merrick too, but you could make an argument that Justin Simmons is still better than Trevon Merrick right now. That's a fair argument that you can make. Juan Thornhill is somebody that's played a little bit of strong, a little bit of free in there. If it was up to me, I think Justin Simmons is one of the top free safeties out there. Though another young player that I watched a little tape on him over the weekend, Julian Blackmon. And, when you think about all the players in free agency, you always pick certain guys that you fall in love with, and then certain guys go, and now you got to find somebody else. I'm telling you what, Blackmon was somebody that did quite impress me, his ball skills, and he was in a lot of situations there in Indianapolis that teams were really kind of picking on that defense because of how often they were on the field with all their quarterback woes. Jordan Whitehead's going to be another name I'll throw out there just because of his ties with John Spytek, somebody that was drafted by that regime, is coming off a little bit of a down year but has shown you some good. Quandre Diggs, he's 32 years old. And this is another player that he was a really solid dude for Pete, for the Seattle Seahawks for quite a few years. And he's still playing at a pretty high level. Like, the fact that he's still going out there and he's still doing his thing, I do think should be pretty damn noteworthy. Also, another name that I don't even know if I mentioned, it was at cornerback, Mike Hilton. Could be another name to at least throw out there. All right, y'all, so here's the thing. If the Raiders make a move today, if it's any type of signing, I will try to get live ASAP Rocky. If it's the Geno Smith deal, I will also try to get live ASAP Rocky. This is a team that's going to be still going out looking for some veterans. They're still going to be going out looking for some free agents. And don't worry. This team is doing, I think, a lot of smart moves. They are planning for the future, and that's all you can ask for. Raiders, let's do it. Let's keep it moving. Peace out. I'll see you guys a little bit later on. I got another video dropping later today on the Raiders Report.